So this week, we're going to be building some stainless steel square body saddle tanks. Welcome back, everybody. Glad to have you with us. I just wanted to note that we are creeping up on the 1,000 subscriber mark, which is awesome. We're excited about that, and we want to thank you all for helping us get there. And this week, we're going to build our fuel tanks. These things are going to be pretty much replicas of what we've got in the 77. If you're familiar with that truck, this is what it's got for fuel tanks. If you're not familiar with that truck, we got a video or two that it's kind of featured in, but we kind of get to cheat a little bit because we've already done this. So our brake can't handle this length of stainless. This is only 16 gauge. Yeah, I think this is 16 gauge, but stainless is stiff. You know, when you get into that length, it technically break it. It's within its capacity, but you start getting arches and deflection, you know, like it won't break the center near as well as the ends. So we just had to farm it out, and a sheet metal shop in Santone did all this for us. They do really good work. We use them a lot. But we already had dimensions and shapes and everything. So it's already pretty much the way it's gotta be. We will have to cut holes in it here and there, but the shape of it is already done. And here's the top. That'll go right here, obviously. And then they went ahead and cut our ends for us and everything. That's that end. And while they were breaking this, they went ahead and put a little lip on it for us, which it just makes it a little bit easier to weld. It reinforces this edge, so it helps with warpage. And it's just a little bit nicer to work with than having a raw edge going around everywhere where you got to weld it up. So there's that end. So this isn't going to be too big of a deal. There is a lot of things we still have to figure out. Where exactly our filler's going to go and how it orients on here. We need to put a vent in it. We need to put a sending unit in it, which we already have right here. And that is KUS. I guess that's the part number there. BOOY. Well, there may be zeros. Nah, surely between two letters they're letters. So BOOY 831RM0. This one's 10 inches long because you needed an inch between the bottom and the bottom edge, or the bottom surface, because it's magnetic. Anyway, you may have noticed that we only have one. So what we want to do with this setup is run an equalizer between them so you can fill it up from one side of the truck. So we got a piece of tubing here. Oh. And we're just going to cut a piece off and put it on each tank. We'll have a rubber hose here, maybe 3 or 4 inches long, and then we're going to use this to go across the bottom of the truck. So it's not just rubber down there that can get messed up and cause a leak. So it'll be mostly metal going across for durability. And that's what that's going to be for. So it'll have an equalizer between the tanks. You just fill it up from the driver's side, and then the passenger side will come up, with gravity. We got a couple little fittings here. Not sure what we're going to use where. This stuff is all for our vent line. So I'm thinking we'll have this coming off the top on the passenger side. It'll come across to the driver's side and tee into its vent. Because as the fuel, for it to equalize, you've got to have a way to displace that air. So we're not sure about the science behind all this stuff. This is more or less 1 inch ID, for the fuel to travel across and equalize. And this vent is only 5/8 or 3/4. Yeah, I think it's 3/4. So it's a little less on the air side as the fuel side, but it seems like air be easier to move, right? That's kind of our theory. We have our vent hose here. We got some AN fittings, some welded bungs, some 10 AN, and 6A in. So we may use 10 on supply, 6A in on the return. We'll have to figure out where these are going to go. But yeah, a lot of things to figure out, and then a whole lot of welding. Before we start tacking any of this stuff up, it's tempting because they're already cut and it's ready to go, but we want to cut all of our holes first. We don't want to have this thing tacked up or welded out and then go cutting and drilling holes. We'll just end up filling the tank with shavings and all kinds of stuff you don't really want in there. So we're going to try to get our holes drilled. You know, if we have to use a plasma on anything, we definitely want to get that done first so we can clean the inside back out before we start putting it together. We'll probably just put it on jacks where it's going to go. We'll start looking at where we want to put our sending unit and our vent and our filler neck and our crossover pipe. So that's going to be first. Get some of these holes out of the way. At the moment, all we really need to figure out is where we're going to put our vent, our crossover, sending unit. I'm not sure about the filler. We may be able to do it off of measurements and get it close enough. Don't know that we're going to be able to use the factory filler neck hose. We might, but I know the back corner of a factory tank is chopped off like this, and that filler comes out about in the middle. Since we didn't put that angle in here, it could get tricky. Because I don't think we're going to want to cope a piece of pipe out for this corner. That don't make much sense. We'd probably put it on top. We'll just have to see. We'll get as close as we can though, but that hole will almost certainly be right here. And that pipe will come off at an angle. Yeah, so here's the front edge of our tank. So we could come off the tank and get back here to this cross member. That would protect our equalizer line. So we have the bolts, the trans mount bolts there. We have to keep in consideration. But yeah, to be perfectly honest, I forgot about the frame coming down like this. In my mind, the bottom of the tank was going to be hanging out the full length.
Right.
So I was really thinking we were just going to put a stub out here. That tubing would just be straight. We'd have a little pup coming out the side. You know, and we could almost just either have a strap like a U-bolt or weld a tab and put 2 bolts here, you know, on and bolt it to the bottom of the frame and just have that pipe going across. That was what was going to happen in my mind.
Or you could drop it down and give you a little clearance between the transfer case and it and put it on the back side of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought about that too. That's not a bad option. It might actually be the better option because it's still a long way from the exhaust pipe. It's getting shielded by the transfer case and you have more ground clearance.
Yeah.
So that leads to another question. Do we need a sump? I assume we're going to draw off the bottom, right? Versus using like a straw.
Well, I mean, a sump is the best.
Yeah. So we could put a little sump right here and draw off the inside of it. And our fuel line could run up here where it's protected. Went ahead and had this broke up too. This is 12 gauge. It's pretty heavy duty. I think what we'll end up doing, which, you know, we'll just cut however long we need off of this piece, and then these flanges here are left pretty big, so you get more surface area onto that 16 gauge sheet metal that the tank's made out of. So we can take and put a radius on this. You know, we may thin it down just for weight's sake. So it'll be figure 8 shaped, kind of like that. We round this off so you don't have any corners where a crack could start. So this would all be welded, or at least mostly. That'll be welded to the tank, and then we'll have bolt holes here that'll go into the frame. That's how that'll work for a mount. We'll cut all 4 of them out of this long piece, weld them on the side of the tank. That'll be that. It'll be about right there. So 7 1/4 puts us about right there. Yeah, just slightly off center, pretty close to the middle. And you know, as far as that's concerned, you only have a straight piece of hose here, so it don't really matter. That little 1/4 inch off center is negligible. We could put it on center and it wouldn't make any difference. So we'll probably just do that. Put our filler right on center, right here in the back, about as close to this edge as we're comfortable getting. So that takes care of that. We know our return's going here. I guess we could just put our vent, you know, right next to this like the factory does. I don't know that it's going to make any difference on this side. So
Yeah, I don't think that it will.
we'll probably just do that. So we've got a filler, vent. We're going to put that vent in the gap. We're going to put a return in the gap. Our supply will be right under that in a sump on the bottom. And then we have our equalizer line sorted out. The only thing left is our sending unit. And that thing can pretty much go anywhere in the deep part. It was ordered to length for this deepest part, so it's got to at least be in that. But as far as anywhere else, I don't think it really matters. But one thing I do want to do on the sending unit on these is I want to cut a thicker plate to mount it to, because that's one issue I had, is that hole is just cut and the mounting holes are drilled in the 16 gauge. And once it was all welded out, there's just a little bit of waviness to that sheet metal, and it causes sealing issues. They'll seal it. The sending unit, I think it has a cork seal, you know, but it's just enough to cause problems. So I want to cut a thicker piece of plate, you know, something you can drill and tap, get good threads in. I don't know that we need to go 1/4, but 3/16 probably, and just put a patch in. So that's something to keep in mind. I don't think we would want to put that patch in the center. You know, you'd want it on an edge somewhere. So we might put a patch here somewhere. That way you're only cutting a U shape out of that top piece instead of a hole in the middle. So all we got to do is get our holes cut, and then we can actually start tacking this thing up. Okay, this piece is going to be the stubs that the hose will slide onto. This is the hose we're going to use. Some pretty beefy stuff, which this tubing is, I mean, it's chunky too. You know, it's designed to hold its own underneath that frame there, so, you know, you ain't going to just run over a stick and tear it off. You know, it's thick, it's going to be strong, along with this hose. There will only be a little bit of hose on each end, but this tubing is just a little bit big. And what we want to do is we're just going to chuck it up in the lathe. We'll turn it down a little bit so that it fits the hose good, and we'll also put maybe some barbs on it, or at least one kind of bead or barb around it, so that it gets a good seal with the hose clamp. So this is long enough to get both of them out of it. We'll make these 2 pieces, and then it'll have a slight angle cut on them. But that's what that is. This is the tubing we're going to use for a filler neck, and it is slightly big too, so we'll have to turn on it a little bit. I think the factory one was 1 13/16, and that was the wide part of the bead. I think the tubing is probably 1 3/4 inches. So again, we'll put a little bead in this too so we get a good seal. Turn the rest down a little bit, and then we'll cut a 45 on it where it goes onto the tank. So we'll get these couple pieces turned down and then move on from there. Put a barb in it, then we just kind of relieved the back side and tapered it out. It's got a little bit of a ridge in it there, but we'll get our hose clamp right behind that barb and it should seal up real nice. Now we're going to do basically the exact same thing with this. We'll just do it twice, once on each end. Go. All we got to do is go cut this will have about a 22.5 on each one of them. Might just cut it right in half like that. And we'll have both sides ready to go. Okay, so there's those pieces cleaned up, and these will drop off the bottom of the tank for the equalizer. So this is a 45. We'll eventually have a 22.5 here, and we'll match up with this. That'll get us level again. We just don't know exactly where it's going to be, but that's how that's going to wind up in the end. So now we have this. We can use as a template to mark that hole in each tank. We have this as used as a template. Now we can start laying out some holes and cutting some holes. Get a little bit closer to actually doing some welding. So we're going to go ahead and lay out our sump now. And we're gonna try to break it all out of one piece, which I don't think is gonna be too difficult. It's just gonna be kind of a triangle with square ends on it, so it's not that crazy. Is never mind this line, it was already there when we started, but that's pretty much it. Break that one down, break that one down, break that one down. We'll have a little sump. Add a couple here. Oh yeah. Yeah, not too bad. Might do a little hammering on it here to close that up, but yeah, that'll be our sump. And we'll put our supply right here in the side. So at least it'll be holding this, you know, the last of your fuel will be trapped in here. It's like we talked about before. If you get down to where this is all you got left, you're in a bind.
Yeah, ain't no joke.
So we need to look inside of here. And we got to put baffles in these tanks. We pretty well decided on just one baffle. I think that's going to be good enough. So the one with the sump, which is this one, I think we just put the baffle on the back edge of this. That'll keep fuel from trying to get out any more than it will already. And we'll just use the same measurement on the other tank and put the baffle in the same place. I think it fits pretty good.
Looks like it does.
Yeah, I think we're on the money. Have to put a straight edge across here to check the top, but that dimension looks good. It was a shade over 12 inches on the outside. It wasn't 12 inches perfectly outside or inside. It was in the middle somewhere.
I see a little daylight, maybe a smidge high. Well, this side doesn't seem to have much, or if any. I think that's close enough.
Yeah, gotta work.
Okay.
So we should be able to make the other one just like it.
All right, I think we're finally ready to start tacking these things up. Now, I'm not saying we're ready to start welding them out, but we're ready to start tacking them up. So we can tack our baffles in, put the top on in the ends, we'll get them all tacked up, everything, and then we need to get our mounts on. That way we can weld the mounts while we have a purge on them. So we're not sugaring up a bunch of this on the inside where the mounts are. So we're getting close, it's not quite there yet. Went ahead and put us some little holes up here just to get some spot welds on that baffle so the top isn't vibrating against it. Right. I wouldn't say it went flawlessly, but it went okay. Considering how many inches of weld we just tacked up, could have been worse. Apparently it was twisted. We had to torque on it pretty good on this end to get it square. And we just noticed this big old ripple that it's got in it now. Kind of sucks. Not the end of the world. It'll be on the inside. Well, you can't see really any of these tanks at all, but you know, they're only built out of stainless because stainless doesn't rust. So certainly ain't the end of the world, but it's interesting to say the least that it creased back here when we were twisting it over there to get the end square. So it's kind of odd. Alright, well the sun's coming in on us, making it kind of hard to see. We picked out some holes. There's a pair of them in here. So we put a mark here where our bracket will be. And there's a couple of under here too that we picked out. So now we just cut our bracket. It's pretty much going to be, you know, the same height as what the tank is deep. And we're about 3/4 of an inch below the top of the frame here. So we can just bring our brackets back over here without the tank, line them up, mark these holes, drill them. Then we can bolt our brackets up, bring the tank back, and mark the outline of the bracket on the tank. Then they'll be ready to tack on. here is the start of our brackets. It's like we talked about before. We want to put a radius on all these corners. So probably just use the plasma and cut those real quick. And this will be the side that welds to the tank. And then we'll drill our holes right here. Now we're going to go ahead and tack some nuts in behind there. Got our holes drilled and cleaned up. Just happen to have some of these big old heavy duty nuts that are kind of just made for welding. I don't think that's what they're designed for, but they are heavy duty. So we're going to use 3/8 bolts. We're just going to tack all these nuts back here. Doesn't take a whole lot. Got our nuts all tacked in here. Now we just need them to cool off so we can go bolt them up. Okay. Here we're having some overheating issues with our camera, but we're having real world issues too. So when we twisted this tank, we put some pretty good ripples in the side that we looked at earlier. So now, if you look way back in there, I'll pull on it a little bit. Yeah, so that's about all we can get. You can see that daylight in there. So the back side's not too bad, but the front side of that front bracket has about a 1/4 inch gap in it. That's a pretty serious issue because we welded those nuts. If we just had a hole there, that bracket could be a little bit crooked and the bolt could still get in it. And the bolt's going to suck it up to the frame. You know, it'll move this sheet metal around. What we're worried about is we ain't going to be able to get the bolt started to get to that point. So I think we're going to abandon the mounts for now. We're going to go ahead and weld the tank out. Probably weld both of them out. And then we'll do the mounts after. That way, if the sides, you know, it may expand a little bit. The side might pop out or in. You know, there's no telling what exactly the tank's going to do when we weld it. So we don't want to make a bad situation even worse. We'll get it welded out, and we may just beat on it a little with a rubber mallet. Try to get that bubble at least going in. I don't think we're going to be able to get rid of it, but if it goes in instead of out, that might solve that problem. So that's where we're at now. I think we're going to go ahead and weld these things out. Then we'll do our brackets later. Well, the first one is welded out. It's kind of a wreck. I think we've learned some valuable lessons here as far as when we tacked it up. We started with the baffle, and then the top, and then the ends. And when we got to the ends, we realized it was way out of square. So when we squared it up, it kind of twisted it. And I think the baffle was holding it in the center, so we were just twisting each end, it's whatever way it needed to go, and that it put a lot of stress in places. So it kind of looks like a tin can if you can see the reflections here, which isn't too big of a deal. This isn't a cosmetic upgrade, this is a mechanical upgrade. But there is one issue with it, and that is our front mount. So it's kind of bulged out right here, and then it's dished in right here. But it's making this front mount where it's only touching like right here. It's not touching here at all, and then there's like a 1/4 inch gap in the front. So we went ahead and welded the back one on because it was pretty flat. So I guess we'll stick it in there and put some bolts in it. And I think we're gonna have to, well, before we even stick it in there, we know we need to, we're gonna take a rubber mallet and do some beating on this thing, try to beat this hump in and get it a little closer to flat. I don't have any illusions about it getting perfect, but we at least need to get it where it's pretty much touching, you know, with very minimal gap in these 4 points, so we can get this front mount on. And we'll almost certainly have to open up the holes in the frame a little bit, because I think these were almost right on size. We're using 3/8 bolts. So the odds of this thing staying perfect are pretty slim. You know, it's thin. Just filling it up with fuel is going to make the sides pop a little bit. So, yeah. We're going to have to do a little finagling to get this front mount on, but I guess that's what we're going to do now. Get this sorted out where we can get the mount on. We'll put a purge back on it. We'll weld these mounts out. I think I'm going to go ahead and weld this one all the way too. I guess I was being lazy at first. I didn't think it was really necessary, but yeah, I probably will, just for safety's sake. It should hold about 20 gallons. So I don't remember what diesel is, 7 pounds and something per gallon. So
Yeah.
140, 150, say 150 pounds roughly. So not a load of weight, but you know, when you're hitting bumps and stuff, shock load could be pretty good. We don't want this stuff to start cracking. We'll probably weld them solid. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna whoop on it a little bit and stick it back in there. See if we can get this mount to touch right. And then we'll weld it out, and at least one tank will be done, the easy one. Yeah, we're in just a touch now. That's not looking too bad. I think it's worth trying there. Well, it's definitely way better than it was. We still got a little gap here, and there. We'll just have to, we'll use a tacking bar to get it pulled up. I had to do the same thing here. It's not a big deal, but at least the gap's so small now that just closing it isn't going to change anything drastically like it would have before. So yeah, we'll just get tacks on it wherever we can, then we'll pull up the low spots, weld it all the way out, finish welding that one out. There's a couple of little spots here I didn't catch when I was welding, but the cut ran through here. I need to fix both sides on that. There may be other things too. We'll fill them up with water, make sure they're not leaking in the end, but yeah. Do some welding. Moment of truth. Well, this is what it's come to, folks. Old school methodology here. Smallest carbide burr we have is 1/2 inch. That's a 1/2 inch hole, so that wasn't gonna pan out too well. We'll get it, slowly but surely. All right, both mounted up.
Yep.
I would say looking good, but they don't really look that good. As long as they hold diesel, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Of course, that's yet to be seen. We still got to water test them, but at least they're both on here. Got all of our bolts in, so that's good. Kind of see what kind of room we got in here. Not a lot. I think really our mounting brackets could have been thinner. Maybe 1 inch instead of 1.5 inches, but they fit good as it is, so certainly ain't gonna worry about that. Now we got to do, get under here, sort out our equalizer. We need to get our pipe running across here. We have rubber on the end, so take a measurement from here to here. Well, no, we don't really need to do that. We just need to know what it is from the frame down so we can make ourselves some little brackets to mount it. So I guess that's what we're going to work on now.
Work.
Sure?
Yep.
Okay. Let's do it.
This will work great. I'm not so sure about our Gorilla hose.
Oh. If we have to come up with different hose, we will. So now that we have our equalizer done, what we're thinking about doing to mount it, using our good old trusty tacking bar here. This is a 1 inch, is that 1.25 inches? I think it's 1 inch. Yeah, by 3/16. This is stainless, so it's gonna be pretty stiff. But we're gonna saddle it like that, and we're gonna bend it over 90. So it'll be saddled, then it'll bend over. It's gonna bend back down with another saddle, so we'll have a U. And then in the middle, we're gonna drill a hole. We'll just tack a bolt or a nut behind it. Probably the bolt will be easier. I don't know, doesn't really matter. So we're gonna have 1.5 inches here. So there'd be enough room if you wanted to run a bolt down in there. But that's all that's gonna be. We're gonna have 2 of them. The flat part's only gonna be about 1 inch. So they're gonna be kind of narrow, but we wanted this to be as far away from the other one as possible so we can have a little more hose. But that's all there's gonna be to it. Just some little U-shaped brackets. We'll weld them down here and bolt them on there, and that's it. So nothing to it. Right. I think that'll do. Now we just need some hose. Boats and hose.
Mm-hmm. Tell which way it needs to go.
There we go. Perfect. We finally got our equalizer in. We got our hoses cut and we got them on. Need some hose clamps eventually, but yeah, that is it. So it's kind of shielded by the transfer case there, and we're up above that cross member, the cross member, by a couple inches, I'd say. So it should be pretty well protected, but even if it does hit something, you know, like we said before, that tube's super strong. Then we got some Gorilla hose on the end. It's about 2 inches thick. So
Yeah.
should be plenty stout.
Yeah, definitely heavy duty.
Yep, that's how we roll. So that takes care of that. See if the old butter knife can handle it.
Just barely.
Yeah. Like a hot knife through concrete. We'll just leave all that tape on there for now. Keep dirt out.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that fit. And that should be nice and safe. There's a cross member right here and another one right here. So nothing's going to be setting on it. Really nothing can get to it. So that's going to work out pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And we're assuming factory hoses are going to work here. They have a 90s molded into them. So that should be all right. Hopefully we'll find that out next week.
Yep, hopefully so.
Well, shouldn't say next week. Next episode, we are doing dually fenders. Or at least,
It's a bold statement.
yeah, I know. Yeah, and it,
We've
well,
only been wanting to do dually fenders for 3 months now.
yeah. Yeah, so if y'all don't get an episode for the next 3 months, you'll know why. I'm still trying to find the stupid parts. But that's next, dually fenders. And then we'll get to make sure that our filler neck hose is going to work. Yeah. Anything and everything left back here we'll have to address then.
Yep.
Got to make sure our exhaust pipe is where we want it to be, hopefully. We don't have to rework any of that.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be good, but
Yeah, I think
never
so
know.
too.
Never know, I reckon.
Yeah, no, you don't know until you know.
Yeah, I think we've gone about as far as we can go with this.
Yeah. Which, I mean, for the most part, it's done. You know, all we're
Yeah.
lacking is filler neck and, you know, our fuel lines, which we'll run those when that time comes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So another episode in the books.
Yes, sir.
Hope y'all enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button. And if you're not a subscriber, we'd appreciate if you'd subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to go in the comments and type subscribe too. That'll get you entered into our giveaways. So we're giving away a DeWalt battery-powered Bluetooth speaker. Everybody loves to have some tunes while they're working, so that'll come in handy.
Yeah.
But that's going to do it for this episode. Appreciate y'all watching. We'll catch you on the next one.